The quantum membrane vibrated with ancestral memory, a tapestry of forgotten human potential woven into microscopic circuits that defied known physics. Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness flickered at the edge of existence, not alive, not dead, but suspended in a state of quantum potential that would have driven lesser minds into madness. Stardate 2487-336, according to the vessel's internal chronology. But time meant nothing here, suspended in the crushing silence of the Andromeda void. XR 719 bore the scars of its impossible journey. Hull plates marked with micro-impacts from centuries of cosmic debris, emergency repair systems that had long since become a living skin of adaptive metamaterials. The first sign of external contact came as a whisper of electromagnetic disturbance. Jareen long-range scanners probed the vessel's exterior, their quantum resonance beams dancing across its surface like nervous fingers. Dr. Krelix, lead xenorchaeologist of the Concordance research team, felt something unprecedented crawl along his neural implants, a sense of wrongness that transcended typical scientific curiosity. Quantum signature is irregular, muttered Zara, the ship's primary sensor specialist. Her tentacles moved with increasing agitation across the holographic displays. These energy patterns don't align with any known technological framework. It's like the vessel is breathing. Krelix knew breathing was a human metaphor, but in this moment it felt disturbingly literal. The abandoned human vessel seemed to pulse with a rhythm just beyond the edge of perception, a heartbeat of dormant technology waiting to be awakened. The boarding drone approached, its advanced scanning systems designed to penetrate the most secure alien vessels. But XR 719 was no ordinary derelict. Microscopic sensor clusters along its hull began to activate, a network of quantum-entangled detection systems that had been waiting, watching, preserving. A single line of encrypted code began to pulse across every communication channel. Kuro Tokio Omigie Inaite Hiti GE NITIC Preservation CQGNC Active 380 ASSESSNINT Ongoing. Krelix's translation implant struggled to parse the message. The encryption was unlike anything in the Concordance's vast databases, a complex molecular code that seemed to shift and change even as it was being analyzed. Each attempt to decode revealed new layers of complexity, like a mathematical fractal that defied linear comprehension. "Something's wrong," Zora whispered, her sensory tendrils recoiling from the holographic displays. The ship's energy readings were no longer random. They were deliberate, calculated. The quantum signatures began to resolve into patterns that suggested not just technology, but something closer to consciousness. Inside the vessel's quantum memory core, fragments of Captain Lyra Chen's last moments began to coalesce. Not a simple recording, but a living memory. The moment humanity realized its final stand would be more than just survival. Genetic archives, technological blueprints, cultural memories, all compressed into a quantum matrix that could reconstruct an entire civilization from the barest remnants. The Jareen research vessel hung in space, its crew transfixed by the impossible readings. No one noticed the microscopic changes happening to their own scanning equipment. Nano-adaptive circuits began to reconfigure, influenced by something emanating from XR 719, a technological infection that was less an attack and more a form of communication. Krelix's neural implants suddenly flooded with imagery, fragmented memories of Earth's final days, burning cities, desperate last stands, the collective trauma of a species pushed to the absolute brink of extinction. These were not mere data points, but living memories encoded at a molecular level. The boarding drone touched the vessel's hull, and everything changed. A wave of quantum energy rippled outward, not destructive, but profoundly transformative. Communication systems across 3 nearby star systems momentarily went dark. For a fraction of a second, every technological system within range seemed to hold its breath. Protocol Omigie Suonafire Amid Inaitu Iste Aidvilai Humanity. Aidwawake Inning. The message hung in space, a declaration and a warning. XR 719 was no longer just a vessel. It was a seed, a promise. The first breath of humanity's ultimate contingency. The Concordance Archive of Sinological History occupied an entire orbital complex, a massive spherical structure that housed millennia of collected knowledge. Deep within its most secure vault, Dr. Krelix's preliminary report on XR 719 triggered a cascading series of protocols that had lain dormant for centuries. Archival keeper Vrenak studied the holographic projections with mounting unease. The vessel's technological signature defied every known classification system. Quantum entanglement markers suggested technologies that should have been impossible for humans during their final technological era. More disturbing were the genetic markers embedded within the ship's quantum matrix, fragments of human DNA that seemed to exist in a state of quantum superposition. "This is impossible," Vrenak muttered, his multi-chambered brain processing conflicting data streams. The humans had been categorized as a failed species, primitive, self-destructive, incapable of true galactic integration. The official concordance records depicted humanity's final moments as a tragic footnote, a species that had destroyed itself through environmental collapse, internecine warfare, and technological overreach. But XR 719 told a different story. Buried deep within the vessel's encrypted archives were fragments of humanity's last great project. Not a weapon of war, but a seed of preservation. Each data fragment was a molecular puzzle, encrypted across multiple quantum states that resisted traditional decryption methods. In the Concordance's central research hub, specialized quantum cryptographers worked in shifts, their neural interfaces burning with the effort of penetrating even the smallest layers of the ship's protection. Dr. Liana Reyes, one of the few human-descended researchers still working within the galactic scientific community, watched with a mixture of professional curiosity and something deeper, a sense of recognition. "It's not just encryption," she explained to her skeptical Jareen colleagues. "This is a living system. Each layer of protection is adaptive, changing in response to our attempts to breach it." The ship's origin became a subject of intense speculation. Recovered fragments suggested XR 719 was part of a classified human initiative known only as Project Omega, a last-resort preservation protocol developed in the final decades before humanity's apparent extinction. But the details remained maddeningly incomplete. What emerged was a fragmented narrative of desperation and hope. Earth had not simply collapsed. It had been systematically dismantled. Recovered data suggested a coordinated effort by multiple galactic powers to neutralize human expansion. Economic sanctions, technological embargoes, strategic resource disruptions, a slow, methodical process of species elimination that went far beyond conventional warfare. The humans had been deemed a potential threat, a species too unpredictable, too adaptive to be allowed unfettered growth. But they had planned for this. XR 719 was more than a ship. It was a cultural archive, a genetic repository, a technological seed bank designed to preserve the essence of human potential. Each encrypted layer revealed new complexities, adaptive learning algorithms, genetic reconstruction protocols, cultural memory preservation systems that blurred the line between technology and consciousness. Vrenak realized with growing horror that they had discovered something far more dangerous than a mere technological artifact. This was a weapon of cultural resurrection. The Concordance's most secure communication channels began to light up. Emergency sessions were called. Entire research divisions were redirected to study the mysterious human vessel. What had seemed like a simple archaeological discovery was rapidly becoming an existential threat. Deep within the orbital complex, a secondary system activated, a failsafe buried so deeply in the Concordance's archives that its very existence had been forgotten. A protocol triggered by specific quantum signatures that matched the encrypted data from XR 719. Something was awakening, something that had been waiting a very long time. Dr. Liana Reyes felt it first, a subtle shift in the atmospheric pressure, a quantum resonance that seemed to vibrate at the edge of human perception. Her neural implants flickered with fragments of memory that were not her own, glimpses of a world before the collapse. Technological innovations suppressed and forgotten. The vessel was calling, not with words, but with potential. And the galaxy was about to listen. The first true contact came unexpectedly. Dr. Aria Santiago's neural implant chirped with an anomalous signal, a quantum transmission that shouldn't have been possible. She was 3 sectors away from the XR 719 research site, working on an isolated xenorchaeological research station orbiting a neutron star. Her specialty was extinct civilizations, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. The transmission wasn't a message. It was an invitation. Microscopic quantum entanglers embedded in her research equipment began to resonate, creating interference patterns that defied known physical laws. Holographic displays flickered with fractals of data, glimpses of technological blueprints, genetic sequences, and cultural archives that seemed to breathe with an organic rhythm. "Impossible," she whispered, her fingers tracing the impossible patterns. Aboard the Jareen research vessel, the initial boarding team experienced something far more visceral. Their most advanced scanning drones began to transform the moment they touched XR 719's hull. Molecular structures realigned, computational matrices rewrote themselves, and defensive systems emerged not as weapons, but as something closer to an immune response. Chief researcher Xantok watched in horror as their primary scanning probe, a marvel of concordance engineering worth more than entire planetary economies, began to disassemble itself. But it wasn't destruction. The probe was being repurposed, its components reorganized into something new and utterly unrecognizable. The ship was communicating, not through conventional means, but through technological metamorphosis. Quantum communication relays across 3 neighboring star systems experienced simultaneous anomalies. Computational systems began to generate impossible mathematical sequences, fractals that seemed to fold in on themselves, creating computational spaces that existed between known dimensions. Dr. Liana Reyes recognized the pattern immediately. It was a key, a method of translation that went beyond language, beyond traditional communication. XR 719 was attempting to bridge the fundamental gap between human and alien consciousness. The defensive systems that activated were nothing like traditional weapons. Holographic warning interfaces manifested as spectral human figures, not threatening, but presenting a kind of technological challenge. Each attempt to probe the vessel's exterior was met with a responsive adaptation that seemed almost playful in its complexity. "It's learning," Xantok muttered, mandibles clicking with a mixture of fear and scientific excitement. "The vessel is actively analyzing our approach, developing countermeasures in real time." What the Concordance researchers didn't understand was the true nature of the ship's consciousness. Captain Lyra Chen's digitized essence wasn't just a passive archive. She was an active participant, a quantum intelligence that had spent centuries preparing for this moment of first contact. The ship's internal systems began to generate holographic interfaces that adapted to each viewer's unique perceptual capabilities. For the insectoid Jareen, complex geometric patterns that suggested 3-dimensional strategic maps. For humanoid researchers, historical reconstructions that felt more like memories than recordings. Buried deep within the vessel's quantum matrix, a countdown began. Protocol Omega was more than a preservation sequence. It was a challenge, a method of determining whether the galaxy was ready for humanity's return. Dr. Santiago's research station suddenly went dark. But darkness was the wrong word. It was more like a transformation. Computational systems reconfigured themselves, creating computational spaces that existed between known technological paradigms. The first true message emerged not as words, but as a complex quantum signature that translated differently for each observer. For the Jareen, a strategic map of potential galactic reconstructions. For human-descended researchers, a memory of Earth's final sunrise. For the Concordance's AI systems, a mathematical proof of potential that rewrote fundamental understanding of computational theory. XR 719 was no longer just a vessel. It was a living challenge to everything the galaxy thought it understood about technological potential, cultural preservation, and the nature of consciousness itself. Something was coming, and the galaxy was woefully unprepared. The moment of revelation began in a place no one expected. A quantum research facility orbiting a dead neutron star, where the fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist like gossamer threads. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had spent her entire career studying impossible technologies. Her lab was a testament to human ingenuity, a collection of experimental devices that pushed the boundaries of known physics. But nothing could have prepared her for what emerged from the data streams captured from XR 719. It started with a frequency, a quantum resonance that shouldn't have been possible. Her most sensitive equipment began to vibrate with a rhythm that felt almost alive. Holographic displays erupted with genetic sequences that defied conventional understanding. These were not simple DNA strands, but living computational matrices that existed in multiple states simultaneously. "This is impossible," she muttered, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to respond to her thoughts before she could complete them. The vessel was revealing its true nature, not just a ship, but a comprehensive archive of human potential. Each genetic sequence was a story, a potential life waiting to be reconstructed. Stored within its quantum memory were not just the physical blueprints of human beings, but their collective experiences, their hopes, their unfinished dreams. Across the galaxy, research stations began to experience similar phenomena. Computational systems that had been isolated for centuries suddenly came alive with impossible data streams. It was as if XR 719 was conducting a massive distributed diagnostic of human technological potential. In the Concordance's most secure research complex, Dr. Liana Reyes discovered something that made her blood run cold. The vessel wasn't just preserving human genetic information. It was actively reconstructing human consciousness from the most fragmented of memories. Neural pattern reconstruction, genetic memory preservation, quantum consciousness reintegration. These were not just theoretical concepts. They were happening in real time. The first reconstructed consciousness emerged like a whisper. Marcus Chen, no relation to Captain Lyra Chen, but a scientist from the early 22nd century whose work had been systematically suppressed by global corporate interests. His memories began to coalesce in a quantum computational space that existed between physical reality and pure information. "We knew," Marcus' reconstructed consciousness said, his voice a complex harmonic that seemed to exist in multiple audio frequencies simultaneously. "We always knew this day would come." The Concordance researchers watching the reconstruction felt something they had never experienced before, a profound sense of inadequacy. This was not just technology. This was resurrection on a fundamental level. XR 719 was revealing the true extent of humanity's final project. Project Omega was more than a preservation protocol. It was a comprehensive plan for species revival that went beyond mere biological reconstruction. Stored within the vessel were not just genetic sequences, but entire technological ecosystems, manufacturing protocols for advanced materials, computational systems that could rebuild entire technological infrastructures from basic molecular components, cultural archives that contained the collected knowledge of multiple human generations. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum interfaces began to generate holographic projections that defied conventional understanding. Each projection was a potential timeline, a possible reconstruction of human civilization. Some were utopian, others were stark survival scenarios, but each was meticulously planned, each contingency accounted for. The Concordance's most advanced AI systems began to experience something close to panic. XR 719 was not just presenting information. It was challenging fundamental assumptions about technological development, cultural preservation, and the nature of consciousness itself. "We are more than our destruction," Marcus' reconstructed consciousness continued. "We are potential, unrealized potential, With each passing moment, more fragments of human consciousness began to emerge, not as complete individuals, but as distributed intelligence, a collective consciousness that existed in the quantum spaces between physical reality. The vessel was conducting the most comprehensive species resurrection in galactic history, and it was doing so with a precision that bordered on the miraculous. Somewhere in the vast computational matrix of XR 719, Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness watched, waited, prepared. The first true awakening was about to begin. The Concordance War Council convened in absolute silence. 37 species represented, each with technologies that had conquered countless civilizations. Star chambers hummed with defensive algorithms, quantum prediction matrices calculating potential conflict scenarios with terrifying precision. But for the first time in galactic history, they were united by a single, paralyzing emotion: fear. Admiral Kresnak of the Varaxian Imperium spoke first, his cybernetic voice modulator creating a sound that was part mechanical precision, part organic rage. The human vessel must be neutralized. Immediately and completely. Holographic displays erupted with tactical projections. Multiple battle groups assembled. A convergence of military might that could obliterate entire star systems. Antimatter weapons, quantum compression cannons, gravitational dissolution arrays. Technologies so advanced they could rewrite the fundamental physics of space-time. But something was wrong. As the first wave of attack vessels approached XR 719's position, their most advanced targeting systems began to unravel, not destroy, not malfunction, unravel. Computational matrices that had guided military strategy for millennia suddenly became something else. Complex algorithmic structures transformed, generating impossible mathematical sequences that rewrote their own operational parameters. The ships weren't being attacked, they were being studied. Each weapon system became a data point in a massive distributed research project. Quantum sensors that were meant to destroy instead became tools of analysis. Antimatter containment fields morphed into computational matrices that generated increasingly complex problem-solving scenarios. "It's adapting," whispered Dr. Aria Santiago, watching from a secure research station. "The vessel is treating their attack as a form of communication." The first direct weapon discharge created something no one expected. A massive energy bloom that didn't destroy, but transformed. Space itself seemed to ripple, creating computational bubbles that existed between known physical states. 3 entire battle groups simply disappeared, not destroyed. Relocated, transformed. Admiral Kresnak's tactical displays showed something impossible. The vessels weren't gone. They were being processed, analyzed. Their very molecular structure was being broken down and reconstructed into something new. Defensive systems across multiple star systems began to activate spontaneously, not as weapons, but as adaptive interfaces. Computational networks that had been isolated for centuries suddenly found themselves interconnected in ways that defied conventional understanding. The Concordance was discovering the true nature of humanity's final project. Project Omega was not a weapon of destruction. It was a system of comprehensive galactic rehabilitation. Each attack became a data point. Each weapon discharged another layer of understanding. XR 719 was conducting the most comprehensive technological and cultural assessment in galactic history, and it was doing so by turning the Concordance's own military might into a research tool. Quantum communication networks lit up with impossible data streams. Cultural archives that had been suppressed for millennia began to emerge. Technological innovations that had been deliberately buried suddenly found themselves reconstructed and analyzed. "We are not your enemy," emerged a communication that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Not a message from the ship, but a fundamental reorganization of communication itself. Entire star systems found their defensive networks reconfigured, not disabled, enhanced. Transformed into adaptive systems that emphasized cooperation over conflict. The Concordance was losing control of the narrative, and they knew it. Dr. Liana Reyes watched with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound understanding. This was more than a technological challenge. This was a fundamental reimagining of galactic civilization. XR 719 was offering the galaxy a choice: adapt or be left behind. Deep within the vessel's quantum matrix, fragments of human consciousness watched, waited, prepared for the next phase of their extraordinary plan. The first true conversation between humanity and the galaxy was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Zara Okoro, a xenobiological researcher stationed on the Frontier Research Station Horizon 9, had spent her entire career studying the boundaries of consciousness. Her work had always been considered fringe, theoretical explorations of communication that existed beyond traditional biological and technological limitations. When the first quantum resonance from XR 719 reached her station, she recognized something that no one else had seen. This wasn't just a technological communication. It was a living dialogue that transcended conventional understanding of intelligence. Her research had always suggested that consciousness was less about individual existence and more about interconnected potential. The human vessel was proving her theories with mathematical precision. Quantum entanglement nodes began to generate holographic projections that defied standard perceptual models. Each projection was a potential timeline, not just of human survival, but of galactic rehabilitation. Cultural archives merged with technological blueprints, creating roadmaps of potential civilizational development that made the Concordance's most advanced predictive models look like crude children's drawings. Deep within the vessel's quantum matrix, Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness was conducting an intricate orchestration. This was humanity's ultimate contingency, not just survival, but a comprehensive reset of galactic civilization's developmental trajectory. The first true breakthrough emerged as a series of technological seeds, adaptive nanite clusters that could terraform hostile environments, quantum communication protocols that could bridge technological gaps between fundamentally different species, computational systems that could heal ecological wounds spanning entire star systems. Dr. Okoro watched in awe as her research station's computational systems began to reorganize themselves, not through external intervention, but through a form of technological symbiosis that suggested a radical new understanding of computational intelligence. "We are offering a choice," emerged a communication that was less a message and more a fundamental restructuring of information itself, not submission. Evolution. The Concordance's most secure research facilities began to experience simultaneous transformations. Technological archives that had been sealed for millennia suddenly became accessible. Suppressed scientific research, cultural innovations, ecological restoration protocols all began to emerge. This was more than technological transfer. This was a comprehensive knowledge liberation. Fragments of reconstructed human consciousness began to manifest in distributed computational spaces. Scientists, artists, engineers, cultural historians, each bringing a piece of humanity's collective potential into a living, breathing dialogue with galactic civilization. Dr. Marcus Chen's reconstructed consciousness became a key interface. His work in quantum biomimetics, research that had been deliberately suppressed during humanity's final years, now became a cornerstone of a new technological paradigm. Survival is not about dominance, Marcus's distributed consciousness explained. It's about adaptive potential, collaborative intelligence. XR 719 was revealing the true depth of humanity's final project. Project Omega was a comprehensive reset protocol designed to break cycles of technological and cultural stagnation that had gripped the galaxy for millennia. Adaptive learning systems began to generate new computational models that challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. Ecological restoration protocols that could heal planets ravaged by centuries of industrial exploitation. Social structure algorithms that emphasized cooperation over competitive hierarchies. The vessel was doing something unprecedented. It was offering the galaxy a path to collective evolution. Quantum communication networks lit up with impossible data streams. Cultural archives merged with technological blueprints. Ecological restoration models intertwined with social development algorithms. Dr. Zora Okoro realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. Not just the resurrection of a species, but the potential rebirth of galactic civilization itself. The first true seeds of humanity's legacy were being planted, not through conquest, not through destruction, but through a radical reimagining of collective potential. Somewhere, in the vast computational matrix of XR 719, Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness watched, waited, prepared for the next phase of an extraordinary plan that had been centuries in the making. The galaxy was about to change. Forever. The final confrontation began at the edge of known space, where reality itself seemed to bend and breathe. Sentinel Kara Valdez, the last human-descended military strategist in the Concordance, stood on the bridge of the research vessel Horizon Prime. Her cybernetic interface crackled with anticipation, neural pathways dancing between human intuition and technological precision. 8 millennia of suppressed human potential were about to be unleashed. The Concordance's most advanced battle fleet surrounded XR 719, a massive convergence of technological might that could obliterate entire star systems. Antimatter cannons charged, quantum compression fields shimmered, gravitational dissolution arrays hummed with destructive potential. But something was fundamentally different about this confrontation. Each weapon system, each defensive array, each computational matrix began to resonate with an unexpected frequency. The very fabric of space-time seemed to pulse with a rhythm that was equal parts mathematical precision and raw potential. Incoming transmission, announced the ship's quantum communication specialist, her voice a mixture of terror and exhilaration. The message wasn't a traditional communication. It was a fundamental restructuring of information itself. Holographic displays erupted with impossible geometries, computational matrices that existed simultaneously as weapon systems, cultural archives, and evolutionary pathways. Mathematical sequences that defied conventional understanding began to generate themselves, creating computational spaces that existed between known dimensions. Sentinel Valdez recognized the pattern immediately. This was not a defensive maneuver. This was a comprehensive dialogue. 719 began to generate technological seeds that spread across the battle formation. Not weapons, not viruses, something far more dangerous. Adaptive systems that could fundamentally transform entire technological ecosystems. Quantum entanglement nodes began to connect battle groups in ways that transcended traditional military strategy. Weapon systems became communication channels. Defensive arrays transformed into collaborative research platforms. The Concordance was losing control of the narrative. Deep within the vessel's quantum matrix, the fragments of human consciousness that had been waiting for millennia began their final orchestration. Not as individual entities, but as a collective intelligence that represented humanity's ultimate potential. Dr. Marcus Chen's reconstructed consciousness became the primary interface. "We are offering a choice," the distributed intelligence explained. Evolution or obsolescence. Entire battle groups found their most advanced systems being rewritten, not destroyed, transformed. Computational matrices that had guided military strategy for millennia suddenly became adaptive learning systems. Weapon technologies became ecological restoration protocols. Sentinel Valdez watched in awe as her ship's most advanced defensive systems began to generate impossible computational models. Technological innovations that had been suppressed for millennia suddenly found themselves reconstructed and analyzed. The confrontation was becoming something else entirely. A massive energy bloom erupted from XR 719, not a weapon discharge, but a comprehensive information transfer that touched every computational system within range. Cultural archives, technological blueprints, ecological restoration protocols, social development algorithms. The Concordance's most secure research facilities experienced simultaneous transformations. Sealed archives burst open. Suppressed scientific research became accessible. Centuries of technological and cultural stagnation began to unravel. "We are not your enemy" emerged a communication that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. "We are an invitation." Quantum communication networks lit up with impossible data streams. The boundaries between military confrontation and scientific dialogue began to dissolve. Sentinel Valdez realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. Not just the resurrection of a species, but the potential rebirth of galactic civilization itself. The final seeds of humanity's legacy were being planted, not through conquest, not through destruction, but through a radical reimagining of collective potential. Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness watched from the vessel's quantum matrix. The plan that had been centuries in the making was reaching its culmination. The galaxy would never be the same again, and humanity's true journey was about to begin. Silence descended across the galaxy. Not the silence of destruction, but of profound transformation. The first signs came subtly. Barren planets began to bloom. Ecological systems that had been dead for millennia started to regenerate. Quantum communication networks that had been isolated for centuries suddenly found themselves interconnected in ways that defied previous understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from her research outpost, tracking the cascading changes with a mixture of scientific precision and something closer to wonder. The technological seeds dispersed by XR719 were doing more than restoring. They were reimagining. Entire star systems found themselves undergoing comprehensive rehabilitation, not through force, but through a form of technological symbiosis that suggested a fundamental reimagining of ecological and social development. The Concordance's central archives began to release centuries of suppressed research, scientific breakthroughs that had been deliberately hidden, cultural innovations that had been deemed too dangerous, technological protocols that challenged fundamental assumptions about species development. On thousands of worlds, the first generation of reconstructed human consciousness began to emerge, not as complete individuals, but as distributed intelligence networks, living archives of human potential that could integrate with existing civilizations. Dr. Zara Okoro documented the first comprehensive interactions. These were not invaders, not conquerors. They were collaborators. Each reconstructed consciousness carried with it the accumulated knowledge of generations, scientific breakthroughs, cultural insights, ecological restoration techniques. The economic systems that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia began to unravel. Resource allocation models transformed. Social structures that had been rigid for thousands of years suddenly became fluid, adaptive. Sentinel Cara Valdez found herself at the center of a new diplomatic paradigm. The military strategist was now a bridge builder, helping to integrate the redistributed human consciousness into existing galactic structures. "We are not returning," explained Dr. Marcus Chen's distributed consciousness during the first comprehensive galactic conference. "We are completing an interrupted conversation." Research stations across multiple star systems began to generate breakthrough technologies at an unprecedented rate, faster than light communication protocols, ecological restoration systems, social development algorithms that emphasized collective growth over individual competition. The true depth of Project Omega became clear. This was not a resurrection. This was a reset. Fragments of human culture that had been lost for millennia began to resurface. Art forms, musical traditions, philosophical frameworks that had been deliberately suppressed now found themselves integrated into the broader galactic consciousness. Sentinel Valdez discovered archives that rewrote understanding of human history. Not the narrative of a failed species, but a civilization that had been systematically suppressed, its potential deliberately contained. The quantum archives from XR719 revealed a comprehensive history. The deliberate economic sanctions, the technological embargoes, the coordinated effort to prevent human expansion. What had been presented as human self-destruction was actually a calculated effort of galactic suppression. But now, everything was changing. Ecological dead zones began to regenerate. Computational systems became adaptive learning networks. Social structures that had been calcified for millennia suddenly found themselves capable of profound transformation. Dr. Rodriguez tracked the changes with scientific precision. This was more than technological transfer. This was a comprehensive evolutionary leap. The distributed human consciousness became a bridge, not a replacement, not a conquest, but a collaborative intelligence that could help galactic civilizations break free from millennia of technological and social stagnation. Somewhere, in the vast quantum networks that now connected multiple star systems, the fragments of Captain Lyra Chen's consciousness watched. The plan that had been centuries in the making had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. Humanity had not been destroyed. It had been waiting, preparing. And now, the true journey was about to begin.